The Airbus A350, the most advanced commercial aircraft in the world. Its construction, nothing short of a masterpiece, on the grand scale and down to the smallest detail. 2.5 million components, 1,800 professionals for the final assembly alone. Together, constructing an aircraft the likes of which the world has never seen before. The goal, minimal fuel consumption, maximum range, the product of precision workmanship, expertise, and quite simply, pride. And all this is only possible thanks to perfect mega manufacturing. Toulouse, France, the headquarters of Europe's largest aircraft manufacturer. In Blagnac, Airbus workers construct the most advanced passenger aircraft in the world, the Airbus A350. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, one of the fleet of Beluga transport aircraft arrives with a delivery of components, so called because its shape resembles that of the white whale. It is key to the construction process. A 1,500 cubic meter cargo compartment and a 47 metric ton payload. An entire fuselage section of the A350 fits in the belly of a single Beluga. Or, as in this case, one of its wings. Measuring 32 meters in length, it would be practically impossible to build the A350 without the Beluga fleet. Baptiste Ronet must see to it that his team unloads all the freight within an hour. Every delay triggers a chain reaction, disrupting construction of the world's most advanced passenger aircraft. Unloading the unique Beluga super transporters is Baptiste's dream job.
I'm very proud of our Beluga fleet. They're key to the entire assembly operation running smoothly. I've loved planes since childhood. My father and my grandfather worked at Airbus. Our family has always been fascinated with aviation.
The Beluga fleet flies wings, fuselage sections, cabin furnishing, and vertical tailplanes for the A350 from around Europe to these assembly hangars in Toulouse. 4,500 suppliers and 12 Airbus facilities are involved in its production. The background behind this complex puzzle? Airbus was established in the 1960s as a consortium of companies from across the European continent. Different locations have different areas of expertise to this day. Of particular importance to the production of the A350 are the sites in France, Spain, Germany, and Great Britain. The nose and midsection come from the Saint-Nazaire plant, the tail section from Hamburg. The wings are manufactured in Broughton and Bremen, the horizontal tailplane in Getafe. All of these shipments must be perfectly coordinated. Head of the unit, Nabil Tahiri.
It's our job to ensure that all the parts are transported on time. We have to always make sure that all of the components are on hand here. Thanks to our fleet of transport aircraft, we can get anything that's missing here straight away. We need around 3 hours to pick up a part from anywhere inside Europe. The Beluga provides us with an extremely quick and safe way of getting all the parts we need in a timely manner. Our system is absolutely reliable.
Even when everything is running smoothly, the A350 still has to go through 7 stations. With 120 aircraft a year, this demands absolute perfection. Everything begins in Station 59. The first stage of the final assembly line. Around 40 workers fit out the fuselage with the large components of the passenger cabin, such as the galley and washrooms. 9 such fuselage segments can be worked on in parallel here. Responsible for this work is François-Louis Godin. He oversees each machine for 80 days, from the first assembly step to completion.
This is where assembly begins. The sections of the A350's fuselage arrive here from all over Europe. We work on outfitting the passenger cabin from the very first station to the last station. What makes this assembly line unique is that we fit out the passenger cabin and assemble the aircraft in parallel. This change to the workflow allows us to minimize production time.
6:30 in the morning. Team briefing at the start of the shift. 15 workers, mostly electricians and installation technicians, divide up the day's tasks amongst themselves. They have to install the galleys, washrooms, and crew rest compartments. Any special requests from the airlines are incorporated here too. The outfitting work is performed on all fuselage sections in shifts. This way, no team has to wait for another. In the tail section of a future A350, 2 workers make preparations for the installation of the galley. Assembly instructions individually pack screws. It all resembles a bit like a flat-pack wardrobe from a furniture store.
It's not as simple as it looks. It's very different to screwing together an IKEA bookshelf. That would be great, but it isn't like that, unfortunately. It takes highly trained craftsmen. Even the smallest of installations can affect the safety of the finished aircraft. As such, special expertise is required for every single operation. It takes months and often years to train our workers.
In contrast with a cupboard from a furniture store, it's critical that nothing can shift, even during the most severe turbulence. No screw may fail. A big responsibility for the workers. Just as it is for the quality inspectors in the adjacent fuselage section. They have to first approve the delivered fuselages for outfitting, but only if every bulkhead, every electrical component, and even the floor is free of defects. The supplier has already ultrasonically inspected it for damage on departure, but a lot could have happened during transport, and nothing can be left to chance. The next fuselage has already been released. Craftsmen seal the floor where the lavatory will later be installed. The film prevents moisture from penetrating the floor. Like everywhere in the aircraft, there are electrical cables there too. And there are more of them in the high-tech A350 than in most other commercial aircraft. There are instructions for every task. Each worker must double-check that the work has been performed to the exacting standard. In the first hangar, the teams install components that would no longer fit through the doors once the fuselage is assembled. A resting cabin for the pilots arrives. The Airbus crew installs it behind the cockpit and above the galley. The A350 is a long-haul airliner. It can fly non-stop for up to 20 hours. There are several pilots on board for such flights who take it in turns to rest. Work on the fuselage sections continues without a break. They are, after all, expected to fly away soon. Next up is Station 50 of the final assembly line. The fuselage sections are now ready for their big moment, the so-called marriage. Waiting at Station 50 are Deputy Unit Head Arnaud Herry and Team Manager Wilfried Martin. They have the nose section for an A350 maneuvered into the hangar. Arnaud has worked at Airbus for 16 years and on the A350 final assembly line for 6 of these. The aircraft is very popular. Over 250 of them have been delivered to date, and there are orders for a further 890 on the books. With this number of outstanding orders, every stage of production is subject to an extremely strict timetable.
Because of the number of parts that have to be assembled to build an aircraft and the large number of subcontractors, partners, and factories that supply them to us, there are a whole host of risk factors. We often have to set priorities in order to ensure that the aircraft arrives at the next station on time. We sometimes allow work that has not yet been finished to be completed at the next station. Our overriding priority is to avoid at all costs the next station being prevented from continuing with the assembly work.
Once the nose section is in place, the transport operator maneuvers the middle section into the hangar. Both sections are already equipped with lines for the hydraulic, water, oxygen, and air conditioning systems. They are already insulated, and wiring harnesses are installed under the ceiling. The tail section waits in front of the hangar. In the case of the A350-1000, the three fuselage sections together measure 73.8 meters in length, 7 meters more than the shorter version. The operators align the fuselage sections with 1/10 of a millimeter precision before they join them together with around 40,000 fasteners. As with the rest of the construction, most of this work is performed by hand. Over 10,000 rivets hold the carbon fiber fuselage sections together. No other aircraft uses such a high proportion of carbon fiber as the A350. Because the material is extremely hard, the workers have to use especially high-quality drilling equipment. 53% of the A350 is composed of carbon composite. It's 40% lighter than aluminum and allows much more complex shapes. Each layer consists of super thin plies of carbon fiber, embedded in a synthetic resin matrix. And there are several layers, a process that takes a few days. In the aviation industry, composites are viewed as the materials of the future and are increasingly replacing aircraft aluminum. The aircraft is fitted with its iconic nose gear at this station, all in parallel with the myriad other processes taking place. This component alone is constructed from around 1,000 parts, primarily made from high tensile steel. It too is installed by hand. Every connection is bonded and bolted for safety. Following installation, the workers check the functionality of the landing gear. It's activated by remote control instead of the pilot pressing a button. The nose wheel must deploy at the same speed it would during approach. The nose gear is now operational. The A350 fuselage must again switch hangars to be fitted with its main landing gear. The workers hydraulically lower the 32-ton fuselage to rest on its support wheels. A big moment. The fuselage of the wide-body jet will soon leave the hangar in one piece.
Despite the routine, you're always learning something new, whether at a personal, technical, or organizational level. You start each day in good spirits. happy to be building these amazing cutting-edge products. It requires total dedication at all times from everyone.
The massive fuselage rests on its wheels for the first time, and everyone holds their breath. The operator of the aircraft tractor grabs the nose wheel to carefully push it out of the hangar, just like maneuvering around the airport. After being joined up at Station 50, the cigar, as it's affectionately known, continues on its journey. A cigar is what an assembled fuselage without wings is called in aviation jargon. These will be fitted at the next station. The next hangar, known as Station 40, can accommodate 4 cigars at the same time. They'll be almost complete aircraft when they leave. The aircraft will be 90% finished when it leaves this station. Wings, main landing gear, tail assembly. The specialists here attach everything visibly missing from the outside of the aircraft. To maintain efficiency, several teams work in parallel at this station too. A crane lifts the wing into position that will later support the aircraft in flight. The 32-meter long and 6-meter wide wings are the largest aircraft components ever to be fabricated from carbon fiber composite material. The wings of the A350 are something very special. Their development was painstaking and contained over 4,000 hours of wind tunnel testing. Positioning them is an incredible feat too. Several thousand rivets will now keep the wings attached to the fuselage at speeds of up to 960 kilometers per hour. Flap design is optimized to reduce vortex generation, resulting in better lift efficiency and improved low-speed performance, while reducing aerodynamic generated noise from the wing. A special droop nose is integrated into the inboard wing leading edge. It helps the aircraft remain flyable even at low airspeeds. This facilitates takeoff and landing. Like the wing, the horizontal tailplane of the A350 is made from carbon too. It has a span of 19 meters and was manufactured in Getafe, Spain. As with the fuselage segments and the wings, all of the electrical and hydraulic systems have already been installed. The vertical tailplane comes from Stade in Germany. It's the only component that is painted prior to installation due to its eventual height. The main landing gear of the A350-1000 consists of 2 6-wheel bogies. During landing, it has to support a weight of up to 233 metric tons. Following installation, Florent Cubereau and his colleagues connect the hydraulic lines that control the landing gear. A combination of adhesive and bolts is used here as well. Florent hasn't always worked on landing gear. He used to be a bricklayer before he applied for a job at Airbus.
I come from Toulouse. Airbus is the biggest employer here, and they started this new program with the A350. They were recruiting workers, so I decided to try my luck at Airbus. After the interviews, I was given training and passed the exams. Then I was assigned here to Station 40.
Airbus is not only the biggest employer in Toulouse, aircraft construction is pretty much a part of the regional identity here. The scale of the facility is truly impressive. 23,000 people work for Airbus in the hangars and offices surrounding Toulouse-Blagnac Airport. They work 5 days a week in 2 shifts. Lunchtime is staggered. The early shift workers go to lunch first, then the office staff. The cooks working in the 15 restaurants around the factory site prepared 2.6 million meals each year, handling 13.5 tons of steak and 10.5 tons of salad in the process. There are 20 company bus routes operating on the Airbus site. They transport 800,000 passengers each year. Anyone traveling to work with their own car can expect to be subject to strict controls. The site traffic monitoring service takes adherence to vehicle controls very seriously. No one is allowed to drive faster than 30 kilometers per hour.
A white Renault, 43 kilometers per hour.
Okay, understood. I'll intercept it.
Those violating the traffic regulations risk losing permission to enter the site.
Hello, sir. I'm from site security. Can you switch your engine off and show me your ID and parking permit, please?
Another citation means suspension of the parking permit.
You can use this to pick up your parking permit in 8 days' time. You have to go to gate B to get it back. Have a good day, sir.
Those who persistently violate the rules lose their permit permanently. Back at Station 40. Work continues after lunch, while wings, landing gear, and tail assembly are being mounted to the outside. Specialists are inside the plane, outfitting the cabin. Installing the cabin interior in parallel to assembling the aircraft is new. This change alone has reduced construction time by 1/3. Francois Louis, head of cabin installation, makes sure that there are no delays with the installation.
We previously saw the start of assembly, when the large components are installed. Everything that wouldn't fit through the cabin door later, once the fuselage is joined together. Here we're installing the so-called floor-to-floor. The wall lining, overhead compartments, and also the safety components, like the signals for cabin crew and passengers, and the overhead units that contain the oxygen masks.
Les messages aux passagers, ainsi que les boîtes à oxygène dans lesquelles sont stockés les masques à oxygène.
The cabin functions are regulated by a central control unit. In the A350, it ensures 20% higher air humidity and higher cabin pressure than has been usual until now, making it feel a lot closer to normal life on Earth. While the interior is being installed, a worker is in the cargo hold with a rag and brush. Cédric Cabarros.
I have to clean this area here before I fix the insulating material in place. Whatever is underneath it will no longer be visible or accessible. Any residues, like a metal swarf or other dirt, that could be hidden behind it must be removed. Only when we're absolutely sure that this area is pristine can we lower the lining and fix in place the insulation between the exterior and interior of the aircraft.
Pour avoir cette isolation thermique entre l'extérieur et l'intérieur de l'avion. Voilà.
There are some traces here, for example. I use a cleaning cloth with a special solvent for this. There's something here too. Now I'm sure everything is clean, and I can close up the insulation.
The big moment for the entire team at Station 40 arrives. Their aircraft will rest entirely on its own wheels for the first time. Everything must be perfectly clean. No work residues, no drop of oil is allowed to contaminate the brand new aircraft or its tires. The workers activate the hydraulic system. They lower their over 100-ton creation. It's an emotional moment for everyone, including for Arnaud.
You could say it's like the end of a pregnancy, a kind of birth. But there's a birth at a station every 8 to 9 days. Over time, that's an awful lot of babies. There's a part of us in every plane. We all put a lot of energy and dedication into our work. It makes us very happy to have done our bit.
Arnaud's colleagues check the tire pressure under the load of the aircraft's weight.
16.4.
The aircraft is about 90% finished. It's time to bid farewell to Station 40. The doors open for the station's latest offspring to enter the world.
Building aircraft is a real pleasure and is something I'm proud of. This is matched by the great sense of responsibility we feel when later our families, our children, or friends climb aboard. So we're committed to doing a perfect job every day, never overlooking anything, and building aircraft of the highest quality. And it's true, you can't help being filled with a certain pride each time you see one of these huge machines flying away.
Everything is ready for the big moment. The openings in the machine are covered to protect against rain before the aircraft is moved to the next hangar. This new A350 will soon be flying for China's Southern Airlines. Millions of people will be putting their lives and their trust in the work performed by Arnaud and his team. $2.5 million individual parts are installed in an A350 when finished. And they all have to be present, of course. Not even one part can be missing. Airbus gathers together the parts for its aircraft at 2 logistics centers. Stored on an area totaling 84,000 square meters, the equivalent of nearly 12 football fields, are aircraft parts and everything needed for the cabin interior: galley, overhead compartments, toilets, and seats. "50 different airlines have ordered the A350. This means 50 different interiors for business, economy, and first class. The logistics specialists supply the components to the assembly hangars as and when needed. This just-in-time process requires precision in supply and demand. David Gaillard is the head of the Airlog Center. He must be aware of what parts are needed at all times. If just a single curtain is missing, the aircraft cannot be delivered, and the entire production line grinds to a halt. Bearing in mind the number of outstanding orders for the A350, a disaster, David tries to avoid delivery bottlenecks and delays by way of stock keeping.
Airbus's strategy involves looking to see where the greatest expertise in a particular discipline is located. This is why we work with many factories in Europe, and indeed throughout the world too, if you include all of our subcontractors. The logistics are highly complex, and that's precisely the challenge our department faces. We coordinate everything and take delivery of parts from all over the world that arrive by plane, train, ship, and of course by road too. We're talking about 40,000 deliveries a week.
On parle de 40,000 réceptions par semaine.
And every single delivered item is checked and logged by David's staff. If any part turns out to be damaged, his team immediately organizes its replacement or repair. Components for the A350 arrive on a near-daily basis by plane too, 7 days a week, from early in the morning until midnight. And then there are the machines waiting to be delivered. Airbus has its own tower in order to coordinate all these flights for the factory in Toulouse. The air traffic controllers don't just monitor the air traffic. Alexandre Clavier has an overview of the entire factory site on his monitors. He also coordinates the movement of aircraft between the hangars. Every machine to be maneuvered from one station to the next needs his approval and clearance. Alexandre and his colleagues have to coordinate 50 aircraft movements each day, and that doesn't even account for the rest of the site traffic.
Fox, Whiskey, Whiskey, Bravo, Charlie. Okay, cleared for takeoff after the fire truck.
Roger, we're pushing back. Cleared for takeoff. Bravo, Charlie.
Airbus shares the runway with the public airport at Toulouse-Blagnac. Alexandre's team also coordinates the cargo flights with the tower there. A Beluga XL, the prototype for an even larger transport aircraft, has just landed.
Airbus 42X Lima, roulé Whiskey, Sierra 32, Zulu unité pour Pierre 8.
The existing Beluga fleet alone clocks up over 10,000 flight hours each year.
We coordinate 2 types of flights, those of the development department and those of production. The ones for the development department are prototypes. The flights for production are aircraft destined for customers, for example, that are being delivered to airlines. 2 air traffic controllers are always on duty at the same time. The air traffic control officer responsible for the frequency controls the air traffic in real time. And we also have a coordination officer who is in permanent contact with the tower in Blagnac and the flight test center in order to get takeoff clearance for the pilots. He organizes the takeoffs.
The
Airbus A350 reaches Station 30. The lower the number, the closer the aircraft is to completion. Francois, head of cabin installation, checks the fittings of the business class seats. Quality control has done its job and identified minor defects. The inspectors have discovered problems with the movement of the seat backs. An expensive business class seat is expected to function flawlessly. High travel comfort is an important component of modern air transport for Airbus, the airlines, and for the increasingly discerning passenger. Airbus promises A350 passengers higher levels of comfort in all classes. Seats, lighting, cabin pressure, and cabin noise levels have been significantly improved. The noise level, for example, is 4 times lower than in comparable aircraft, a benefit that mustn't compromise quality in other areas.
Lorsqu'il arrive à cette station, nous installons tous les sièges.
At this station, we install all the seats from economy to business class.
Donc la première étape, c'est de rentrer le siège dans l'avion, de l'installer.
Colleagues from the quality control department check whether the seats have been installed properly. If necessary, defects are rectified by the seat manufacturer.
Puis nous avons éventuellement des reworks qui sont faits par nos partenaires qui fabriquent les sièges.
While the remedial work is going on, another team installs the seats in economy class. The fuselage of the A350 has an especially large diameter, hence the suffix XWB, which stands for extra wide body. In its standard configuration, the A350-1000 can accommodate 366 passengers, but it's also possible to fit 10 seats per row. This would allow the aircraft to carry as many as 440 passengers. Claire Sescon is the deputy head of Station 30. She supervises and coordinates 30 electricians and mechanics who perform the preliminary function tests and take care of small repairs at the same time.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Tu vas bien?
Ça va et vous?
Ça va. C'est bon? Tout avance comme tu veux?
Ouais, c'est bon, on va monter ce panneau là.
Ok, parfait.
In contrast with every other assembly line at Airbus, the mechanical and electrical systems of the A350 are worked on in parallel.
It is a great responsibility to take care of the safety of the employees and of the aircraft, especially here at Station 30, where different departments work simultaneously: quality control, production, and testing. The key to our successful work lies in the harmonious cooperation required to build the aircraft on time, to the highest quality, and to everyone's safety.
There are specialists for every task, however minor.
Will this be ready soon?
Yes, the specialists will drill the holes shortly, and then we can carry on.
Perfect. Super. I grew up in Toulouse, so I always saw planes and watched the maiden flights. The residents of Toulouse have always been surrounded by aviation. For me, working here was a dream from an early age.
Today, Claire supervises how workers here at Station 30 add the finishing touches to the A350. The workers, for example, close the last gap between the fuselage and the wing at the side of the aircraft.
528, 488.
In the cargo hold, electrician Cédric Lomond is testing the cabling. 180 kilometers of cable are installed in every A350. Keeping track of everything here is a complex undertaking.
In position now.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay.
Connected to ground.
The electricians test every single cable in the aircraft. All the systems are still accessible, for now.
We're testing the cables. This involves increasing the voltage in order to find out if the resistance is high enough. These are the cables that control the engines.
After the test, Cedric's colleague seals off all the connectors again. No dirt can be allowed to get into this sophisticated control system. All of the cables that the pilots use to control the aircraft's functions converge in front of the cargo hold below the cockpit. Safety-related systems are installed in duplicate for redundancy. Specialists inspect every single cable connection here too, irrespective of how difficult they are to get to. They're always conscious of their responsibility. Any mistake that electrician Nicolas Vernier makes now could have fatal consequences.
This is where the electronic control systems are located, the heart of the aircraft, as it were. When doing my job, I often think about all the passengers who'll board this aircraft someday and set off on their travels with complete confidence.
Once all the function tests have been completed, the aircraft moves on to the penultimate station, Station 20, where its engines will be fitted. The A350 is powered by two state-of-the-art turbofan engines, developed exclusively for this aircraft by Rolls-Royce. It's the most fuel-efficient commercial aircraft engine in the world, the Trent XWB. The engine specialists hydraulically raise the massive turbine up to its mounting points below the wing. They bolt the 8-ton, 50,000 horsepower engine to the aircraft wing using just two mounting brackets. The massive turbine consists of more than 20,000 components, most of them fitted together by hand. Once the turbine is secure on the pylon, the hydraulic transport vehicle is lowered back down. A single turbine costs almost 32 million euros, so great care must be taken when maneuvering. Each of the two engines generates 374.5 kilonewtons of thrust. Each turbine consists of 22 titanium blades and has a diameter of nearly 3 meters. During takeoff, the engine takes in over a metric ton of air each second. Rolls-Royce uses state-of-the-art ceramic coatings inside the combustion chamber, because in this turbine, the air-fuel mixture burns at extremely high temperatures, in excess of 2,000 degrees Celsius. The upshot? Around 15% lower fuel consumption and significantly better emission levels than its predecessor. In addition to this, Trent XWB engines are much quieter than any other aeroturbine, essential for planes flying over heavily populated conurbations. Before Airbus shipped the first A350 in December 2014, aircraft and engines were subjected to extensive stress tests under extreme climatic and weather conditions that the aircraft would not have to endure during normal operation. Back at Station 20, cabin integrator Laurent Barateau sets about making the last few minor adjustments. Everything must be just right and adhere to the highest standards to ensure acceptance by the customer. Every reading light must be angled properly. No scratches must be allowed to ruin the impression. The list price of an A350-1000 is almost 330 million euros. So the customer understandably expects to receive a first-class product.
At this point, we examine everything again very closely and place great emphasis on protecting the cabin, as all the elements are very expensive. If you install them, you should avoid damaging them. As several jobs are always being performed inside the aircraft at the same time, everything has to be well protected. Unfortunately, however, we sometimes find some damage or we discover during testing that a seat doesn't work properly. Then we have to rectify the issue.
Just a couple of days until completion. Time for the plane to receive its paint job. The painters apply 5 coats of paint. A polyurethane paint with low volatile organic compound content. That's better for the environment and the painters. The spray guns use an electrostatic spray system. They distribute the paint extremely evenly, thus reducing paint consumption and aircraft weight. After 4.5 months on the final assembly line, a new Airbus A350 is finished. Finally, the pilots take over, and this marvel of modern engineering can take to the skies. 10 aircraft of this type take off on their maiden flight each month. Soon, hundreds of them will be connecting continents and millions of people as they are carried to their destinations worldwide. And as they do, they'll be flying on the most advanced passenger aircraft in the world, the Airbus A350 from Toulouse. Every 6 years, at the very least, every plane has to clear its schedule for an important job. It's a major inspection, known as an IL check. How much work does this involve? 25,000 man-hours. It's one of the most complicated pit stops in the world. Lufthansa Technik Malta is an expert in aircraft maintenance. Day one of a huge new project, the Airbus A330-300, official name Kilo Romeo. It's over 63 meters long and almost 17 meters tall. Kilo Romeo is used for medium to long-haul routes. The Airbus's wingspan, a good 60 meters. And it travels at a maximum speed of 875 kilometers per hour. The complete overhaul takes 40 days. During this time, a team will dismantle the entire cabin, which includes the seats, kitchens, toilets, wall panels, and floors. No matter how small the component, the inspection is thorough. Clean, check, and repair or replace. Once everything is outside, the team checks the airplane's structure for damage, right down to the last screw. inside and out. At the same time, engineers perform any repairs needed on the wings, landing flaps, and engines. Lufthansa Technik Malta checks the safety of fleets from several different airlines. At the start of any new inspection, project manager Daryl Heyman can never be sure what kinds of problems he'll discover and whether he will manage to stay on schedule.
Once we have everything stripped down, we kick into an inspection phase, and from the inspection phase we will know exactly what we're looking at. It is surely a challenging job.
The first big challenge is getting the gigantic aircraft into the hangar. Engineer Patrick McAuliffe takes command. The blue work platforms in the hangar are carefully adjusted to Kilo Romeo's dimensions. The 200 million euro jet has to park right in the middle of them. Routine for the 29-year-old engineer. Even so, he needs every spare pair of hands in the hangar.
Everything is okay? No ducking, no nailing? You will need to be like, you have like 10,000 eyes on each person, because a slight crack it costs thousands of dollars. Stay one left, one right. Everything is clear? Okay, good. So, we will be inside in a few minutes. Step one.
Despite different nationalities and noise from the turbines, communication has to be as simple and clear as possible. Patrick's instructions are standard marshalling signs. Just like parking a car, reverse parking a plane relies on turning the wheel at precisely the right time. The entrance to the hangar is a critical point. From here on, Flagman Patrick only has minimal tolerance on either side. Only if Kilo Romeo stays on the yellow line in the middle will it fit into the hangar.
Very close, less than half a meter, you know, so it gets very close.
Patrick spots a problem. Kilo Romeo is moving at a slight angle, next to the guiding line.
A little bit misaligned. It needs to be a little bit to the right.
The pit stop is on a very tight schedule. In just 40 days, the Airbus has to be ready for safe takeoff, or so says the flight plan. Any delay here in the hangar means potential cancellations for the airline and its passengers.
Everything is according to plan, so hopefully we'll continue and finalize the towing procedure.
The wings are approaching the platforms. They did it. The plane is in position.
As it is. Brakes on.
Good job, boys.
All the area had been clear. Nothing had gone wrong, so everything was perfect today also. Another job done.
So the first successful milestone of this layover.
Exactly, first milestone. The hangering.
A complete overhaul in 40 days. This requires 5 teams: cabin, engines, cargo hold, electronics, and structures.
So good morning, everyone. We're day 1 of 40 for the next incoming project on Kilo Romeo. The clock is ticking to achieve the 40 days. We need to start now, so let's go and let's do the job and make it in time.
The only way to stick to the schedule is for all departments to work at the same time. The engines team starts by removing the turbines. To do this, Patrick has to prop and lift the aircraft. This allows the lift truck to fit underneath the turbines. To lift the plane, he positions 3 jacks, like the ones you find in a car workshop, but much, much bigger. He places one at the nose of the Airbus and 2 under the wings.
We check that the nose landing gear jackets, everything is okay. The lock nuts are tight, so if there is any movement, the nut will be in place. Kevin, we start lifting the nose. 1.3. 0.2.
Patrick starts by lifting the aircraft's nose. Then, the team slides the jacks under the wings.
We're aligning the main landing gear jack that goes inside the jacking adapter.
Kilo Romeo weighs 170 tons. If the jacks aren't positioned correctly, they'll slip and pierce through the wings.
Alberto, Andre, and we have ADN on the nose jack that they will need to be synchronized, because right now the aircraft is stable at 0 degrees, and we're gonna lift all the 3 jacks together. Alberto, Andre, mains up.
Both operators have to lift the wings so they remain exactly parallel. If one side rises quicker than the other, the plane will tip over. The massive lifting platform elevates Kilo Romeo 7.5 meters up from the ground. Its 170 tons are balanced perfectly between the 3 points. Now, the lift truck can fit under the engine.
A lot of job had been done, and a lot of more pending work to be done later on this check.
10,000 individual job cards, 25,000 man-hours. Project manager Daryl has already performed general overhauls on over 100 different planes, and yet every plane brings new challenges.
So in the next couple of days, we'll be seeing a different aircraft. So yes, it will be interesting for one to see from when the aircraft arrives into our facility, into the hangar, how the aesthetic of the maintenance event changes.
To stick to the plane's delivery deadline, Daryl has to keep his eye on all 5 teams at the same time, both outside and inside the plane. James Sheed is in charge of Team Cabin. His job, completely dismantle the interior, inspect it for faults, and then place everything back where it belongs.
Carpet, guys. So upholstery, we start removing all carpet. How much time do you need to? At least 2 hours should be finished. Yeah. The carpet. So then we need all cove lights in area 7, sidewalls and dados to be removed today.
James coordinates 15 tradesmen and engineers. All of them work in sync, which is why they truly depend on each other. A single delay, and the entire pit stop schedule would fall behind.
Everything is happening at the same time. I have to go around the cabin all the time to see that everything is going smoothly and no problems are being held from an area to be removed. That's why it's a little bit complicated.
Before things can progress, the seats have to be removed. That is Jason Shikluna's job. The more comfortable the seat, the heavier and bulkier it is. A business class seat takes around 6 times longer to remove than an economy seat.
You have this here. Okay. Just have to go. Move it back more. Okay, like that. Good. Mainly, this is the back shell. All power supplies are here. This will be connected to the seat, where for every seat they have actuators, motors. Mainly, they have 5. Every motor for each movement of the seat.
Around 750,000 passengers have traveled the world on these seats. The main thing they leave behind? Dirt.
I'm always dreaming to find maybe a diamond, you know.
Jason has just 3 days to remove the 238 seats. His seat shop is one of 13 workshops inside the hangar. Each department performs all their own repairs on site, which saves an incredible amount of time. Lufthansa Technik doesn't just look after Lufthansa aircraft. Airlines from all over the world bring their planes here for a general overhaul. For Jason, this means ever-changing kinds of seats, along with their various defects.
You know, every seat is a jigsaw puzzle. So every part of the seat has a number. If you need to, if you have something broken, you have to check on manuals, check that part number. Then you will order and replace any parts that are damaged.
An essential part of every check is a thorough safety assessment of the seats and belts. Jason only replaces the upholstery where necessary. Inside the hangar, the teams continue dismantling Kilo Romeo. 70 people work simultaneously on every part of the plane. The structures team is inspecting the Airbus's steel frame. Every single bit of corrosion must be identified. Patrick and his team are still removing the turbines. An assessment of the hoisting under the engines is a mandatory part of every IL check.
We need to work simultaneously, all together. Everyone will be take his chain blocks and everyone works together.
To access the engine hoisting, Patrick's team must first remove the turbines. Four chain hooks help them out. Using synchronized levering movements, they slowly lower the engine. Once complete, the engineers can finally access the hoisting. This is what holds the engine to the wing. It has to be checked every 6 years.
So this is the forward inboard mount. This big attachment, as you see, it will get attached later on to the fan frame, and also on the other side, still the same.
The mechanics use levers to lift the truck and its struts.
All together.
The lift truck uses the same principle as a forklift.
Yes,
keep going.
Lower down.
Keep going.
That's it. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Once the truck has reached the right height, Patrick detaches the engine from the wing.
1, 2.
Finished. The struts are now at the same height as the turbines. The team detaches the connection to the wing. Now the lift truck is holding the full weight of the engine, 6 tons. One of the plane's heaviest components. Success for Patrick.
So another engine had been removed, another job is done. Everything went pretty well, everything is okay.
Another task for the Mega Pitstop, checking the outer shell for damage caused by bad weather. Even the tiniest bit of damage from hail or lightning can pose a safety threat. At the same time, under the plane, mechanics are bleeding the fuel tank, so they can inspect it from the inside later on. In the cabin, things are still being dismantled. Project manager Daryl is supervising over 500 individual job cards just for the interior.
Working in maintenance, aircraft maintenance, it is something which keeps you always on the edge, always concentrated. You need to be always concentrated, and it's a nice and interesting job that makes you feel proud if you're working in it.
Daryl and his team make sure that passengers can feel safe. That is always the #1 priority, even more important than costs or the pit stop schedule. After 750,000 passengers, a thorough clean is well and truly in order. The seats have all been removed and are in the workshop. The cabin team is now removing all the carpets, flooring, and cladding from inside the plane. Only now can Team Boss James start concentrating on the trickiest part of the disassembly process. The equipment in the middle, in other words, the kitchen and toilets, are blocking the workers' path.
Mainly the items that are repairable is the lamination here, which you can see several damages which can be repaired, and new lamination will be installed.
The term monuments refers to components that are assembled as a group.
This does not split, so it's very heavy to get it out. So you have to be exactly with the door level, and you need at least 4 to 5 guys because it's really heavy. So first lift a bit up and go backwards. Stop there. So now we have to tilt it forward and slowly, slowly. Lower it down from the front. Okay, so let's go straight. And we have to tilt up. Yes, tilt, it's all right. Lower it a bit. It's okay at the top. All right. Yeah. So go forward to the door. Lower it a bit down more. So I have to go straight like this. Small, yeah? Go straight. Wait.
The part is stuck, which means it is blocking the door for other workers. James needs a speedy solution, otherwise they'll fall off schedule. The teams adapt their workflow on a daily basis. Every delay is carefully logged.
Each morning or a day before, normally we schedule what work needs to be done, and every job has its job card number and task related to it.
Each page describes one of the 10,000 job cards in total, from a simple cleaning job to a repair that affects the plane's safety. Like the inspection of the engine hoisting, for instance. It attaches the turbine to the wing. Any problem could spell catastrophic consequences. Andre is replacing a very specific bearing. This is also a mandatory process in the IL check.
It takes all the loads, literally. It transfers the loads through the pylon, engine, pylon, and wing structure. And this is the job of this bearing. We use this tool when the bearing is literally stuck. It's so hard, there's so much torque in it. You will never loosen it.
Andre has to drill into the bearing's mount to replace it.
The material is so strong that the bits wear out quite easily.
The connection is incredibly strong. The ring is mounted to the wing. The entire engine's 6-ton weight will later hang off this single tiny component. This connection must never break, no matter how strong the wind, turbulence, or vibrations.
Finally, yeah? This little thing is what holds everything together. It keeps engines flying. Yeah, it's a bastard.
Meanwhile, on top of the wing, the cabin team still has a problem with one of the monuments. Cabin boss James and his team have dismantled aircraft from all over the world. When you're dealing with so many different components, it's impossible to know every detail. Take these plastic bumpers, for instance.
Sometimes you forget about these things. It's a small item that sometimes the manual does not tell you to remove that bumper, but to get out from the door, it's really exact height. So it's just a few millimeters.
Finally, the module fits through the door and is now on its way for repairs in the neighboring shop. The team has nearly finished dismantling the cabin. Next step, finding the defects.
It's getting a bit exhausting for everyone, but this is the phase when you need to be fully concentrated, because any mistake at this stage can jeopardize the TAT.
DOD, that's the planned date of delivery for the repaired plane. In 33 days. So far, the team has been right on schedule. The cabin is empty. The structures team now inspects the ceiling, walls, and floor for damage. Biggest risk in the interior? Moisture, and the resulting threat of corrosion. Outside, the team is facing their most challenging dismantling task. One of the flap track bearings is faulty. This calls for some heavy machinery. After all, the flap alone is over 5 meters long and weighs 300 kilograms. Engineer Andres Spiteri is responsible for this job.
The hardest part is not to take it out, is to make sure we keep it clear away from the aircraft and not to damage and not to hurt anyone.
These huge components influence the airflow to make the plane ascend, descend, or maintain its course. During takeoff, the flaps boost lift. For landing, they increase air resistance. During the inspection, they demand Andre and his team's full attention.
More. Go. Stretch. Okay. Yep.
The crane has been calibrated precisely to the weight of the flap.
What we're doing now is we're adjusting the hoist so we can have it centered. So when we actually remove and take the weight of the flap, we don't have any surprises, like all the weight goes in the aircraft or moves suddenly out and throws us out of the docking. I think it's enough, huh? That's tight, Ruben.
The center of gravity must be exactly in the middle. Otherwise, the landing flap could suddenly tip over.
Oh, should be good. Thank you.
The cables are taut. Andre releases the flap from the wing.
Slowly.
Okay.
Okay. Just leave it like that. Okay. Oh. It's moving. Okay, it's coming out. It's coming out by hand. Oh. Okay.
Now, the flap is held only by the crane, a dangerous balancing act.
We need to push up, and Johnny, pull it.
The biggest risk? That the flap could hit the fuselage and cause millions worth of damage.
Rope. Oh, rope.
Oh.
All right.
Be careful of the docking at the back.
Suddenly, the giant part threatens to slip. While some members of the team focus on the big parts during this mega pit stop, others take care of the tiny details. Shaya Ray Kalea from the structures team checks everything that holds the Airbus together. For example, thousands of screws. This is just one of the many jobs that are invisible to passengers, but essential to their safety during a flight.
That responsibility is big because I will just think if my family is riding that plane, I have to make sure that it's safe.
The screws are the smallest components in the aircraft, but they are also the most common. It is cheaper to clean and repair each individual screw than it is to just replace them all. Shaya also repairs the metallic components in the cabin and is one of only 5 women working in the entire hangar.
What I like most about my job is that I am being challenged every day. I am challenged to do my best and push my limit.
Shaya's job? To repair Kilo Romeo's shell. During a flight, it's what protects passengers from temperatures of minus 50 degrees outside the plane. Shaya has been fascinated by flying since she was a child. As a woman working in a male-dominated environment, she also sees herself as something of a pioneer.
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid to be one of the boys, and don't be afraid to conquer the world's, the men's world. Because if they can do it, why can't we?
Outside the cabin, Andre's team is still struggling with the 300-kilo landing flap.
Jib up, go.
The workers have to lift the flap up and pull it away from the plane at the same time.
More. Hand over the rope. Watch the harnesses.
They've done it. This final component marks the end of the dismantling phase.
Luckily it's out. Happily out. Yeah, job done for today.
Day 19 of the Mega Pitstop in Malta. The 5 departments of cabin, engines, cargo hold, electronics, and structures work at different paces. The engines team is completing its repairs. The turbines have been checked, repaired, and signed off. The cabin team has removed and numbered all of the parts. Next step, start repairs in the seat shop. For 238 seats, this means 15 days of work. The seat rows are set up exactly as they are in the cabin. Every seat has its assigned place, as the customer expects the plane to be essentially the same as before the pit stop, except that it's been overhauled. Jason starts by taking inventory.
We will check, first of all, the cushions that are in good condition or If any are damaged or worn, we will need to replace. Then we will start checking functional of the seat.
An assessment of the basic frame and seat belts are mandatory jobs for this check interval. What's more, the airline has opted to have the seats fully reconditioned to make sure its passengers are comfortable.
What's the condition of the cushions?
Cushions, some have some damages. They're worn. And regarding the bottom covers, we've got about 60 stained.
The team cleans and repairs anything worth saving. For larger scale damage, Jason orders specific spare parts. When dealing with so many different airlines, keeping every spare part in stock for every aircraft model is impossible. The new landing flap has arrived at the hangar. Unfortunately, it's the wrong color for the airline. Solution? Paint it over. This means a delay to the schedule.
It puts more pressure on us to deliver the actual milestone on time. So we delayed it maybe like 2 days, the installation, since it was originally planned.
A 2-day delay. It's a major setback for the hangar crew. After all, the next flight has already been scheduled for Kilo Romeo. The shop team tries to win back some of the time lost. 102 specialists polish the components to return their original shine. They do this for every part that passengers come into contact with, including the wall panels, windows, ceiling lights, and toilets. If properly maintained, this Airbus is able to complete over 80,000 flight hours. There's just a week to go before the plane is delivered to the airline. While the cabin team is well underway with repairs, the hangar crew is still looking for faults.
We kick into the inspection phase, where all inspections are carried out throughout the aircraft, and any defects are identified, parts ordered, and items need to be rectified, basically.
Current status: the engines are still in very good condition after 6 years. However, there is still one dangerous job left to do: cleaning and checking the fuel tank, a job that risks suffocation or explosion. And the electricians still need to check mile upon mile of cabling. The fuel tanks are located in the wings and at the bottom of the fuselage. If they contain any foreign bodies, these could rub against the tank and cause corrosion. And corrosion could cause fuel loss. Cleaning is therefore a hugely important job, but unfortunately not a particularly safe one.
This is the vacuum pump that works with air, because obviously you cannot work with electricity in the fuel tank.
Well, so basically, Piney, I'm going in to do an inspection, all right? So let's do this.
The area that Ruben is climbing into is normally filled to the top with fuel. That's over 200,000 liters. Fumes, darkness, cramped conditions. You have to be a special person to take on this kind of job.
It's not fair. I'm planning to get fat, you know, because it's not fair. It's always me, you know.
You have to get fat.
It's not nice being the skinny guy inside the engines.
You have to get fat and get old.
Yeah. So yeah, I have to inspect everything, every corner, every rivet, every high lock, everything, correct assembly, because the fuel tank is quite critical. So yeah, I have to make sure it's as clean as possible. Chris.
Yes?
I'm moving on to the inner tank. Can you please hand me the vacuum, please?
Coming.
Ruben is also on the lookout for cracks and leaks. It doesn't take long for such defects to expand. The mechanic has to inspect a total of 6 fuel tanks, the smallest of which is just 30 centimeters tall. One thing Ruben always has with him on board, a strange feeling in his stomach.
I find it quite scary, to be honest, because, yeah, if something happens.
It could be that there are fumes. He could trip. He could slip. And then, obviously, he will need help. If he's by himself, no one can help him. But if there's a colleague outside, he can either call for help or go in and help him. The worst thing to do is to actually panic. Ruben,
yeah.
Is everything okay?
Yep, everything good.
Okay.
And then, suddenly, Ruben finds a problem.
These little tiny metal shavings could cause a problem everywhere in the aircraft because they could be a potential for corrosion, and we don't want corrosion on an aircraft.
Ruben soaks up the splitters with his vacuum pump. In total, he needs 2 days for inspecting and cleaning all of the tanks, completely in the dark. At the same time, one story up. Cabin boss James is right on schedule. His team has finished checking the interior. Now it's time for everything to go back in. There's just one team still working on the inspection phase. The electrics team, which has to check 400 kilometers of cable. They all come together in the avionics bay, Kilo Romeo's control center. It is located directly under the pilot seat. This is where it all comes together. Entertainment systems, smoke detectors, autopilot. Declan de Jong checks each and every connection, a job that requires total concentration.
You have to be alert all the time. You have to watch what you're doing so you don't trip and bump your head or fall or break anything.
Declan performs the first of 3 checks. 2 more electricians will then come along behind. This is because job cards directly related to passenger safety are always checked by more than one expert.
And it's basically checking all the wires for damages, for burning marks, shaving, and that kind of stuff. So like this wire, see, it's a bit loose, all the way. So first we do is clean with the brush and some alcohol, make it clean.
Loose wires vibrate during the flight and could generate friction, a safety risk that shouldn't be underestimated.
Now what could happen, say, if there was like a cable broken or damaged and it could make like sparks, it would give in the cockpit an indication that there's a fault somewhere. And maybe in the worst case scenario, it could spark and cause smoke or fire. Worst case scenario.
The last few days of the Mega Pitstop. Daryl's team now has to put the plane back together again as quickly as possible.
We're hitting the final phase, milestones all on track, and we've got 374 defects still open. You're doing a brilliant job. Keep focused and come on, let's do it, okay? Let's go.
Back at Jason's seat shop, the new seats have arrived.
New seats. Smells good, eh? It's like when you buy a new car.
Jason is installing 16 brand new seats. The rest have been reconditioned. The seating is arranged right down to the last centimeter. The issue here is one that passengers take very seriously: legroom. The rows can't be too close together, nor can they be too far apart. If just one row is in the wrong place, this can trigger a chain reaction. It could end up that a whole row of seats doesn't fit into the plane anymore.
You have to move everything, all seats or cables. Hopefully, it doesn't happen.
There's another problem. The paneling is still missing in some areas. For Jason and his seats, that means stop. Project manager Daryl is tense. During the installation phase in particular, it is essential to make sure all teams are perfectly in sync. Otherwise, his team may miss the upcoming deadline.
At the moment, although it's a bit quiet, teams are a bit frustrated to a certain extent that we could be in a better situation than we currently are.
Everything is happening at once in the cabin. The paneling is finished, the seats are going in, and the bulky monuments have to go back in too.
Slowly, guys. Oh, oh. You need to go forward. Raise. Lower. You're right.
Even the smallest scratch means remove the element again, repair the defect, then reinstall.
Okay. More up, yeah. More up, yeah. All right, all right. More up.
Now it's time to see whether James can deliver on time.
To reach the target, you need to be concentrated fully on the project. Sometimes, if you make a wrong decision, like you install something before another one, you might end up removing it.
A huge puzzle made up of millions and millions of pieces. Every piece has been checked for safety and repaired. From the tiniest screw right through to the skin. Slowly but surely, Kilo Romeo gets its outer shell back. Shia Ray and the structures team are making up for lost time.
Now that we're on the installation phasing already, it's very fulfilling because that means we did the job fine, yeah.
It's a precision landing for head engineer Andre, too.
It's like your house, you know? You're always here, coming to work, making sure it's safe to fly, fitting everything in place like a puzzle. Yeah. And at the end, it's just satisfying just to see it go.
Last problem area to address, the cabin. But things have finally started moving here too. The monuments and seats are all back in position.
Yeah, it's satisfaction. After all that work, you know, removal, inspections, rectifications on seat, bring them like as new again.
Day 39. Kilo Romeo looks brand new, both outside and inside. Project manager Daryl has done it, and 1 day ahead of schedule. The airline's inspectors will perform one last check of the entire aircraft before the Airbus A330 can take a test flight. The plane can't start transporting passengers again until these two steps are out of the way. 10,000 job cards, 25,000 man-hours. Kilo Romeo is back and ready to start safely transporting thousands of passengers to their destinations.
Very exhausted. Very exhausted. But again, this is the most rewarding day when we see the project coming to an end. A satisfied customer, which is important, and most importantly, a well-maintained aircraft with a high level of quality for the safety of our passengers.
For Daryl, the next project is already waiting in the wings. He and his 170-person team are the unsung heroes of aviation. The crew here in Malta makes sure that air travel remains the safest mode of transportation.
A giant of the skies, the Antonov An-124 100M-150. Worldwide, the biggest production cargo aircraft of all time. 35 years old and still highly sought after in the transport sector. No aircraft can transport more goods. At the height of the Cold War, an important means of national transport and prestige object for the Soviet Union. Now it is in use all over the world and is the queen of international air transport. Today, it is bringing a 61-ton generator 11,000 kilometers from England to South Korea. Normally a piece of cake, but every job has its quirks.
Tell him not to go up there with the crowbar. What's he doing?
The crew is under time pressure, and they don't suspect that inadequate equipment and unprepared workers await them at their destination. The transport could very well end in disaster.
We lifted off the rail track and it will suddenly collide, and then we have a huge problem, of course.
A suicide mission of sorts. Will the mega transport survive the ordeal? East Midlands Airport, 70 kilometers north of Birmingham. The Antonov An-124 is due to land here at the cargo terminal in a few minutes. This man is responsible for getting the mega transport off to a smooth start. Logistics manager Tom Blakeman. His job is to make sure everything stays on schedule.
Tom Blakeman. Hello, Paul. Very well, very well. Just waiting for your aircraft. Yeah, that's him.
A 73-meter wingspan. Even at a distance, it looks like a giant. Without cargo, the Antonov already weighs 175 tons. Of the 56 Antonovs built, only 37 are still in use today. No matter what the airport, all over the world, the Antonov always causes a sensation. The East Midlands cargo terminal is no exception. Although the Antonov lands here often, it is always a special event for Tom Blakeman.
The thing about this aircraft is that even though we handle about 40 a year, that you learn something new about it every time it comes in. And it's just a fascinating aircraft. It's totally unique. The type is totally unique. There's nothing like it in the West. It really is, it created its own market.
The Antonov An-124 is a great success for the engineers of the former Soviet Union in 1982. Nearly 70 meters long and more than 21 meters high, its dimensions dwarf all other aircrafts. Up to 25 cars could park on just one wing. But the aircraft's true strength is hidden in its belly. The cargo hold is 1,040 cubic meters. A total of 150 tons of additional weight can be stowed here. Behind the wings on the upper deck, a sleeping and lounge area with space for 88 people. The cargo hold is not pressurized. Thus, it should not be entered during the flight. And so, the pilots sleep in a cabin right behind the cockpit. Logistics manager Tom Blakeman goes looking for the Antonov's flight manager. There is no time to lose, for every loading job is tightly scheduled. The special thing about the cargo hold is its height. The An-124 can take freight measuring up to 4.4 meters, such as the most powerful tractor in the world. No other production aircraft can do that. A movable 5-meter metal ladder leads to the cockpit. It is full of ancient Soviet technology. Thus, instead of 2 pilots, a 6-person team is required to control the Antonov. The Mega Transporter is already 35 years old, but is no less fascinating on account of its age.
It's always an awesome sight as it's taxiing towards you, yeah? And I think that's really the awe of it before you enter the cargo compartment. But once you enter this place, it's very much like a warehouse, a cathedral even.
All reverence aside, the logistics manager must make sure that the Antonov stays on schedule. The customer is paying about 300,000 euros for the charter flight. And every minute of delay costs more.
Open the hatch.
Everyone obeys his commands. Sergei Bulachenko, the 62-year-old load manager, is in charge of the cargo hold. Loading this aircraft is an art, and he is a master of it like no other, as he has spent 1/3 of his life with the Antonov.
I worked on this airplane as an engineer for another company before Antonov Airlines hired me. I kept working with the An-124, so I've been working for more than 20 years with the same aircraft.
First, the team unloads the airplane's internal track system. It will be used later to get the cargo into the Antonov's interior. The load manager leads a team of 10 experts, including flight engineers, technicians, and transport workers. In the meantime, the cargo arrives in the security area of the central English airport. The steam generator enthroned on the truck weighs 61 tons. Its value, about 5 million euros. If everything goes well, in 3 days it will already be in use 11,000 kilometers away in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. Besides the generator, 6 other components must go into the cargo hold. The load's total weight is 75 tons, the equivalent of 6 tractor trailers, a true mega transport. But before the mega cargo can be loaded, it must go through a few security checks. The generator must be scanned for possible explosives, the same as every piece of tourist luggage. It just takes a bit longer, up to 6 hours. But Jamie Parker remains cool. He works for the logistics company at East Midlands Airport and has allowed for all eventualities.
We factor in things that may delay the flight. So we have that little bit of a window in case we have any knock-on delays, loading delays, which with aviation always happens.
The explosive screening starts 1 hour late. Not good. The security officer is having a problem with the scanner. But the crew must be able to start loading the generator on time in order to avoid extra costs. Meanwhile, the Antonov's technician crew is still unloading the track system at the cargo terminal. Once the tracks are set up as 2 rails in front of the airplane, cable winches haul the cargo on board on a loading sled. The Antonov's loading system is unique. For all other cargo planes need additional lifting systems to help transport freight inside through the nose.
To load the 61-ton generator onto the airplane, we have to lower the front, as it were. Then we set up the tracks, place the cargo on them, and finally haul it into the airplane.
The airplane's entire nose can be opened upwards using a hydraulic apparatus. In the process, the lifting mechanism raises a total of 1.4 tons. It takes 3 minutes for both nose landing gears to slide forward. The cargo hold slopes down 3.5 degrees, thus allowing itself to be loaded from the ground. Truly exceptional. The first step in loading is to position the ramp. Ramp and tracks must be exactly parallel to the ground in a 90-degree angle. Otherwise, the generator could fall over during loading and, in the worst case, even damage the airplane. Under the load manager's watchful eyes, the men begin lowering the 10-ton ramp. As soon as it is in the proper position, supports will be placed underneath it. From now on, the Antonov must be handled with the utmost finesse. Instead of high technology, Sergei Bulachenko relies on traditional tools.
It's very important to get the ramp at the proper angle, so we use a level.
Bulachenko must make sure that the track system is exactly parallel. Any mistakes would only come to light later and could have catastrophic consequences. Back to the cargo. The explosive screening is complete. The crew has made up some time, but it is still 30 minutes behind schedule. The generator is given a seal and wrapped up again. Now, it's time for the general security check.
Have to go through the checkpoint, so the driver has to be secured, the cab has to be checked to make sure that's secure. The documentation to make sure that it's made known has to be checked before it goes through to the airside.
This last check stands between the cargo and the Antonov. The clock is ticking. Each delay threatens to push back the scheduled departure time. The suspense mounts. At the cargo terminal, the Antonov's team is still busy with the exact position of the nose ramp. Load manager Sergei Bulachenko takes a final measurement.
It's good.
Success. The crew's next task is to set up the airplane's internal track system. As opposed to all other large cargo planes, the Antonov does not technically require any extra lifting trucks or hoisting platforms. The kneeling giant has everything it needs on board. This is another unique feature and an unbeatable advantage. A special crane must be used, only to lift the generator onto the tracks. Scheduled departure is in 4 hours. Loading can take up to 6 hours. If the generator doesn't show up soon, time will get tight. Logistics manager Tom Blakeman is still optimistic.
As long as we have everything complete for 1800 local and the crew turn up, the flight deck will be on schedule. We might be a little bit close to the line, but we'll be on schedule.
Finally, the long-awaited phone call comes. The generator has cleared the final security check.
That's fine, Paul. That's fine there. Yeah, continue forward.
A lifting beam hoists the generator onto the tracks. In total, more than 30 people are working on the loading, methodically, calmly, professionally. After all, the generator is worth 5 million euros.
Everything from now until it's in position on the noseless system will happen very slowly and deliberately.
Raise the load, set it down, done. Sounds easy, but this type of loading is a pioneering invention in the history of aviation. At the end of the 1970s, Soviet engineers developed the Antonov An-124 as an army transport plane. The innovation, the flat ramp at the nose, lets armored track vehicles drive directly into the cargo hold from the ground. Upon its first flight in 1982, the Antonov was the biggest airplane in the world, with a maximum takeoff weight of over 400 tons. But the An-124's career only really took off with the end of the Cold War. After being converted to a civil cargo plane, it has been operated by Antonov Airlines in Kiev. The airline's fleet consists of 7 planes of the type An-124. They transport very heavy loads for international customers around the globe. To make sure the planes remain flight-worthy, they are brought here for maintenance every 2 years at the most. This man is proud to be one of the head designers at Antonov Airlines, Alexander Loss. For the Antonov can do a few things that no other cargo plane can.
The multi-strut landing gear, which has several intentions: to evenly distribute the loads to the fuselage and to the airframe, to reduce the specific weight and pressure on the airfield if it is concrete, snow. If we speak about some practical things for the decades to come, this is the answer in the heavy load transportation.
A Soviet masterpiece, a stroke of genius with a history and future potential. The history begins in 1947 with the first flight of the Antonov II. The arms race engaged in by the Cold War superpowers accelerated technical development enormously.
It is the most interesting part of Antonov history because this is the beginning, the origin of Antonov Design Bureau. The number of airplanes produced already more than 16,000, so this is the record keeper in the world in terms of mass-produced airplane.
Asphalt, gravel or ice. The very first Antonovs could already land on any surface. In this respect, they are still unique around the world. But just like with human beings, the older they get, the more intense their maintenance. This An-124 has been flying for 23 years and is supposed to fly for another 23. To make this happen, the experts in Kiev take it apart completely every 2 years. This time, they find 800 defects. They have 2 months to repair the cargo plane. In this period of time, 80 technicians work on the project, 3 shifts a day if necessary. Around-the-clock maintenance. Today, the 4 engines are being inspected. Each one has a thrust of 23 tons. Senior engineer Alexei Pervishko oversees and coordinates the work.
Look at the outlet. The blocking valve on the tube has to be closed. Everything on the crossbeam has to be right.
Right away.
Then put the doors back on.
Pervishko has been working at Antonov Airlines for 18 years, and he knows the An-124's quirks. The undercarriage must also be given a general overhaul today.
Something to be changed here? Is there also a problem here? On the right strut or the left?
They've taken the part off and will wash and sterilize it.
If they have questions, they'll let me know.
One of the axles is slightly bent and probably has to be replaced. A puzzle with many tiny pieces. Antonov is not a company, but a family. And the airplanes are not products, but the children. Everyone here says so. And everyone here lives by this motto, including Alexei.
The work is interesting and I like it. I started as a technician and for 9 years now I've been head flight engineer for this airplane. I especially like that you can touch each piece with your own hands. The plane doesn't look good when it's taken apart. But then the technicians reassemble it, and it transforms into a beautiful bird. A dream.
Now it's time for the wings. With a surface area of almost 630 square meters, they are as big as 1.5 sports centers. Its maintenance will require a lot of time and money, as an external laboratory tested some small parts and found considerable defects. Alexei has checked the results. Now he tells his workers what to do.
There are holes right in this area. That's not allowed. The documents show that these areas were checked and that these parts must be replaced.
When this Antonov An-124 was built, digital technology was still a foreign concept. That makes maintenance a mammoth task. Back at East Midlands Airport in Great Britain, the Antonov is waiting for today's cargo. It is supposed to transport a 61-ton generator 11,000 kilometers to South Korea. But first, the team has to load it safely. A special crane hoists the multi-ton cargo from the low-bed trailer onto a special loading sled. Load manager Sergei Bulachenko watches the generator's progress like a hawk.
Load it straight. Once it's down, that's it.
Precision work with a crane. The team must continually reposition the generator.
Okay?
No, a little more.
It has to be parallel, okay?
Only the load manager can give the order to set it down. The smallest mistake, and the generator will tip over. Finished. The metal block has survived the move unscathed. Sergei Bulachenko is relieved.
The cargo will now be positioned, tied down, and secured. Then we'll start loading the plane. Time to get working. The clock is ticking.
Only 4 hours remain until the scheduled departure. Only those directly involved in the work may be up close during loading. And for good reason.
Cables under tension are always dangerous things, because if they snap, there's a whiplash effect and it will just chop you in half. So anytime a cable's under tension, that's a sensitive issue. Yeah.
To keep the generator from falling backwards in case the cables break, the team continually reattaches the securing chains. Centimeter by centimeter, the Colossus slides into the plane's belly. After about an hour, it has disappeared inside the Mega Transporter. Special mounts in the floor make sure the cargo does not move during the flight. But the load manager, Sergei Bulachenko, is not yet satisfied.
Okay, let's take these two anchorings and pull them out from the other side to make more room for the crates. And we have to move the generator another ½ meter forward, just like that. Now let's remove these two platforms if we can.
The final position is precisely calculated. In the so-called center wing box, the most stable part of the airplane. Only here does the generator not endanger the mega freighter's balance. If the airplane's center of gravity shifts, in the worst case, it could crash. Here, every inch makes the difference between success and failure. Finally, the load manager gives the okay to secure the generator.
The cargo must be right on the calculated spot to keep the plane balanced. That is essential to safety.
The team fastidiously secures the generator on the perfect spot. Using the internal cargo crane, the crew then hoists the rest of the crates on board. The master of the cargo hold now looks satisfied.
Loading is complete. We were even a ½ hour ahead of schedule. The team did a great job, the customer did a great job, and now we're all satisfied.
During loading, Bulachenko's team made up for an hour's delay. The cargo, weighing 75 tons in total, has been stowed securely in the Antonov's belly. For logistics manager Tom Blakeman, the job is done.
Everyone's a challenge. I think the favourite is the one you're working on at the time. But everyone's has its own challenges. So they're all favourites.
The Antonov's crew stows the track system in the cargo hold. Using hydraulics, the giant plane is returned to its normal shape, considerably heavier than a few hours earlier. But will the mega transporter bring the cargo to its destination safely? Shortly before takeoff, now only the cockpit crew is missing. And they take care of the safety check. An external inspection is compulsory for the 35-year-old An-124. The pilots check the airplane for dripping hoses and cracks in the skin. Yevgen Bashinsky is being trained as a pilot on the Antonov. In the cockpit, the 32-year-old Ukrainian first checks the emergency exit.
These doors here open down. And down here we have an escape tube. And what we have here is a rope. So, if there is an emergency situation, we can escape the aircraft safely by using this rope and this emergency exit.
If there is a problem, the pilots reach safety using a slide. There are also parachutes on board. Every instrument in this cockpit is operated and controlled by human hand. To fly the giant, 2 navigators and flight engineers sit behind the pilots.
The operating functions are similar to control in this aircraft and any other aircraft. I cannot say that it's harder to fly this aircraft or easier. But not each airport can provide enough clearance for us.
The Antonov is supposed to take off in 45 minutes. First Sergei, the pilot must inspect the engines. Here too, everything is analog, not digital. 4 turbofan engines power the AN-124. Their combined thrust power is equal to 600 BMW 7 Series. The massive undercarriage is also a technological masterpiece. The air pressure in the 24 tires can be lowered by 30% while in flight. Thus, the Antonov can take off from cement and land on sand or hard-packed snow. Incredible. In the back of the plane, a shaky ladder leads to the upper deck. This is where the cargo hold team lives and works when on assignment. Instead of stewardesses, the men must rely on self-service. There is no luxury to be found. So that the team can rest, most of the seat rows have been converted to sleeping berths.
Come up.
During the flight, the crew is not able to enter the cargo hold underneath. Mistakes, such as loose anchoring, would only come to light after landing. An airtight hatch separates the men from the cargo hold. From now on, they can only hope that all the chains hold. It's time. The Colossus taxis onto the runway. To lift its 250 tons into the air, the Antonov must reach a starting speed of at least 290 kilometers per hour. The pilots give full thrust. The journey to Seoul is nearly 11,000 kilometers long. Since the Antonov cannot refuel in mid-air, it must stop along the way to fill up. In Burgas, in Bulgaria, in Turkmenbashi, Turkmenistan, and in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. The heavy weight has its price. It takes 2 days for the cargo to reach its final destination, Seoul in South Korea. During the flight, only the load manager can communicate with the pilots in an emergency. At an altitude of 10,000 meters, there is little for the cargo hold crew to do. 3.5 hours later, the Mega Transporter prepares for its first approach. The crew affectionately calls the massive cargo plane Hotel Antonov. They spend 3 months at a time away from home. But with a little luck, they can get very close to their loved ones while in flight.
When we fly to Europe, then we almost always fly over my dacha. My wife is retired, and we have a grandson already. And they watch us with pride when we fly by very low.
In Bulgaria, the Mega Transporter has to refuel for the first time. 60,000 liters of aviation gasoline. With this amount of fuel, a car could drive around the world 23 times. The loaded Antonov can make it about 4,000 kilometers. At the same time, load manager Sergei Bulachenko checks on the valuable cargo in the giant's belly.
It's absolutely necessary to check the weight and status of the cargo every time we land. We have to make sure everything is stowed properly, and then we record everything in a log.
The cargo plane itself must also be thoroughly checked after every landing. The technicians make small repairs right at the gate. But after 4,000 flight hours, a general overhaul is necessary. That means, about every 2 years, the Antonov planes must be thoroughly inspected. In this way, each plane can be used around the clock for up to 45 years. Back in the maintenance hangar in Kiev, this Antonov An-124 is scheduled to make its next flight in 2 months. But before then, the technicians must fix 800 defects. Time is slipping away. Alexei Pervishko is one of the head engineers at the hangar. He monitors and coordinates all the work on the aging aircraft. One of the weak spots on which Alexei's crew is working today is the cockpit.
Юра, привет. Как дела?
The technical equipment must continuously keep pace with the modernized control systems used at airports.
We have a problem. Some of the instruments were dismantled and their parts are in the lab for maintenance, or were even sent back to the manufacturer. Thus, some parts of the equipment being checked now are not complete.
One person who might know the plane better than Alexei is Sergei Komarov. The 59-year-old has worked here for 40 years. Even met the great designer Oleg Antonov personally. There is probably no screw, no rivet on this airplane that Sergei does not know. Even up here on the wing, 20 meters off the ground.
I'm checking the fuel tank system for cracks and leaks. In principle, this work is not difficult for a qualified specialist. It's what we're trained for. With good training, the only thing you've got to do is pay attention. It's not complicated. Only it's high off the ground, and it's a lot of work.
The work plan is tightly scheduled. Step by step, the technicians eliminate all the defects and check off each service item. The next thing for Sergei Komarov to check is the massive undercarriage's hydraulics.
Look where the fluid is pumped to. If the pump malfunctions and does not pump out the fluid, landing becomes a real problem.
The maintenance work seems endless. But Sergei Komarov tells us, with no little pride, why he has earned his living here for 40 years.
Our whole soul is in there. The soul of our factory, of our mechanics, designers, the soul of each man. The airplane shows what we Ukrainians can accomplish. And I've never yet seen a comparable aircraft, one that can transport such unusual, bulky cargo.
When he has time, Viktor Goncharov comes to the hangar to see how the work is going. He is one of the few Antonov test pilots, and he commands absolute respect. Viktor, according to the stories told here, has the windows of a plane darkened so that he can take off and land blind, relying entirely on the instruments. In addition to the standard testing of newly installed equipment, such extraordinary maneuvers are among the Antonov test pilot's chief tasks. They are specially trained to simulate emergency situations in the air, like the loss of an engine. For him, an Antonov is a fascinating challenge in comparison to a modern plane.
Of course, this airplane has its peculiarities. Like every airplane. Above all, you have to be aware of the incredible weight spectrum. Sometimes you're flying a very light plane, other times a very heavy one. You fly it very differently depending on the weight.
In only 2 months, the airplane is scheduled to leave the hangar in Kiev. It will then resume flying heavy transports around the entire globe. Change of scene. The Mega Transporter's inspection at the Burgas airport is complete. The 6-man cockpit team prepares for takeoff. There are no computers. The crew operates every instrument by hand. The Antonov needs 2.7 kilometers to reach its takeoff speed. The runways are often only 3 kilometers long. Little leeway for the pilots. On its way from Bulgaria to Seoul, the Antonov stops in Turkmenistan and then in Kyrgyzstan, located 1,800 kilometers away. After a 7-hour layover, it takes off for its final destination. The approach to South Korea's capital. In 48 hours, the generator is slated to supply energy in a nearby location. At its new operation site, the island of Techu. Promptly at 11 a.m., the mega transporter taxis to the cargo terminal. The men do not yet know what difficulties await them. The Antonov's gigantic proportions are also a real eye-catcher in tech-savvy Korea. The customer has sent a veritable reception committee to the airport, but the crew cannot let itself be distracted by the onlookers. Everything must be perfect again when setting up the track system. Only when the rails are in their exact position can the crew safely unload the generator. They have 4 hours.
Watch the cables, we're laying the brackets under.
Using 2 winches, the team slowly slides the 61-ton generator out of the cargo hold. But this time, there is a problem. The loading sled keeps getting skewed on the rails. Load manager Sergei Bulachenko is angry.
Tell him not to go up there with the crowbar. What's he doing?
The boss has to fix his team's mistake with his own hands. He continually checks the generator's position. Now, everything seems fine. After 2 hours, the job is done. But now, a forced break. They must wait for the special crane which will hoist the generator from the tracks. After 3 additional hours, it is finally allowed onto the tarmac. Apparently, the South Korean airport doesn't have enough experience with such heavy cargo. After all, it's not every day that an Antonov lands here. The crane operator also seems overwhelmed. He comes dangerously close to the giant cargo plane's nose. The Antonov's crew is alarmed. If something happened to the plane or its crew now, right before the finish line, it would be
a catastrophe.
Ben Moorman is also rather worried. The engineer works for the company that makes the generator and is acting as a consultant for the customer. Above all, the thin lifting bars are a cause for concern. No one can say with certainty if they will be able to bear the weight of the generator.
What possibly can go wrong is that the items appear too weak, and when we connect, it's going to be a trial and error situation, which is not desirable. We lift it off the rail track and it will suddenly collide. And then we have a huge problem, of course. We damage the aircraft, the cargo and also the crane materials, and then we have a huge, huge problem.
And then, another logistics error with disastrous consequences. According to the manufacturer, the crane's cables can bear a maximum weight of 48 tons. But the generator weighs 61 tons. This doesn't add up. The unloading seems to have been borne under a bad sign. The operation is suspended. A bitter pill for the Antonov's crew. At this point, no one knows if they'll be able to finish the job today. Flight manager Yuri Majewski exercises patience.
If we stop now, we have to load this cargo back, secure it in the aircraft, and tomorrow start all procedure.
The longest unloading operation the crew has ever experienced lasted 24 hours. Here in Korea, 7 hours have already gone by. But a phone call gives the customer's consultant some hope.
We have received good news. Yeah, finally. After very much phone calls, they have found new material. And also we have made a change in plans. We're not going to use the lifting bars, which are a little bit weak in my eyes, and everybody here agrees. We're now heading for a new approach, and this will result in a much better way to lift it, much safer.
The new cables will be attached directly to the generator. 3 hours later, the men finally resume unloading the cargo. But after so many mistakes, the Antonov's load manager remains skeptical.
Wait. Wait. Don't go there yet.
Tension is in the air and on the cables. Will they bear the generator's weight? A few minutes later, the crew can finally breathe a sigh of relief. The cables hold, and without further ado, the crane moves the cargo onto the low-bed trailer standing by. 5 hours late, but at least the job's done now. A nerve-wracking day comes to a close. Ben Moorman, the consultant, is exhausted, but visibly relieved.
It was a little bit of a discussion with a few people, but finally everybody was on the same page and we did a good job to get a safe job done. Everybody wants always a safe operation, and that's what we achieved, so I'm very lucky.
The Mega Transporter has successfully completed its mission. The generator survived the transport from England to Korea unscathed and is now on its way to its operations site.
Everything went well. The flight was flawless. My team worked professionally and I had fun. I've spent my whole life with the Antonov.
There is barely a country on Earth the Antonov's crew has not yet seen. The men will relax in Seoul for 2 days. Then they will get ready again. For a new mega transport awaits the gigantic airplane.